Hello, my name is Peyton Young, and this is my writing assignment presentation. So, for the introduction, overall negative affect is defined as an overall negative sense of mental well-being. So, any emotion that you can think of that has a negative connotation, irritability, fear, anger, distress, hostility, all of those can be described as negative affect and also be measured with the PANAS measure, which stands for Positive and Negative Affect Schedule. When it comes to the COVID-19 pandemic, there's so many new rules to abide by to keep individuals and their families safe that were almost unheard of in society prior to the pandemic, such as you all know, avoiding large gatherings like concerts and amusement parks, only shopping when absolutely necessary, wearing masks in businesses and outside, constant hand sanitizing, and so many more. And in conjunction, so many seemingly normal things that happened prior to the pandemic are almost seen as dangerous activities now, like aforementioned concerts, amusement parks, even shopping in a crowded grocery store or eating inside a restaurant can be seen as dangerous. The hypothesis formed for this study was that COVID-19 safety procedures would have an association with overall negative affect, while the null or H0 hypothesis was that these two variables would not be correlated. When it comes to participants, this study included 142 college students at the University of South Florida, ranging from ages from 17 to 44, with a mean age of around 21, a median age of 20, and a standard deviation of 3.79. Racially speaking, over 50% of the participants were white, 9.2% were black, 6.3% were Asian, 4.9% were multiracial, 30.3% were Hispanic or Latinx, and 2.8% were either not listed or the individual preferred not to answer. Measures chosen for this study were adherence to COVID-19 public procedure, and this was measured by measuring the amount of safety procedures weekly, the average, and negative affect. And negative affect is a Likert 1 to 5 scale based on the PANAS measure. Reliabilities in this study, the internal consistency of the PANAS scale is 0.86, which is a very reliable measure. Contrastingly, though, in the study, the test-retest reliability of negative affect from 1 week to 1 month was only 0.15, which shows that it's not very high in this specific study. And the test-retest reliability in this study in reference to COVID procedure adherence was 0.66, which is reasonably reliable. Methods. The design for this study was to take the self-reported answers from a daily survey's range of questions pertaining to the measures chosen and analyze them to see if any association is present and the type that it is, if any, meaning positive, negative, curvilinear, etc. These surveys were answered from January 19th to April 23rd. At the beginning of the daily surveys, around 37 out of 142, or 26% of participants, had answered questions pertaining to the first measure, which was COVID procedure adherence. And contrastingly, by February 4th, 99 out of 142, or 70% of participants, answered questions pertaining to the same measure. The second measure of negative affect did not seem to differ nearly as much, with 88 out of 142, or 62% at the beginning, and 90 out of 142, or 63% on February 4th. So results for this study found that the mean engagement amount of weekly COVID-19 safety behaviors across all participants was 2. The standard deviation associated with the engagement in these safety behaviors was 1. And regarding negative affect, the mean weekly score across all participants was 17.75, and the standard deviation was 5.9. And once a linear regression was run on the data, it was found that there was a p-value of 0.26 and the correlation coefficient, or multiple R value, was 0.004, meaning it is a positive relationship. However, there really is no real association present. So, some conclusions and limitations for this study. The findings for this study were non-significant, And this result depicts that the relationship between these variables is not strong enough to be able to reject the null hypothesis. These findings did not support the hypothesis stated at the beginning, as there was not, in fact, any tangible significance to display a relationship between these variables. And some possible limitations could be alternative explanations for the negative affect score, such as a low test score or an argument with a loved one. Also, people could become tired of taking the same test repeatedly and start to not accurately report their emotions and their adherence to the safety behaviors because maybe they're fence sitting or they're just filling in random bubbles to get it over with. And also, there isn't too much information that you can get from a Likert scale, 1 to 5. Somebody's 3 could also be somebody else's 2, or somebody's 1 could be somebody's 4. And so there could be a lot more information gathered from, say, an open response.